Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm ready to start talking some football. So let's kick things off by bringing back my wonderful co-host, aka the New York Mets fan and a fellow member of the Bills Mafia like me. Everybody, please welcome back my co-host, Mr. Joe Dalio. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. So great game Sunday. And how about our friend Terrell Bernard? Not just the first 3 games of the season, but he made some Bills and NFL history this past Sunday.
Yeah, all of a sudden, playing like an all-star, right? We talked about him about a few weeks back, right? And he finally lived up to his potential.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of good things to talk about, which we'll certainly get to. Just forgive me, I'm battling my September cold. So to my audience, if I start choking, please forgive me. I think I've had more chokes this week than a Marty Schottenheimer coach football team. So I'll do my best to, to hold it in and drink my water here. So forgive me.
Marty Schottenheimer, though, one of probably the best coaches in the NFL, not to ever win a Super Bowl, one of the best head coaches, if there was such a topic. But yeah, you still got to give Marty Schottenheimer obviously his flowers for what he did. But anyway, let's welcome back a member who has been part of this show. He's a frequent guest in the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room, Steve Atchison, a.k.a. Steve, the Bills car guy.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Thanks
Steve,
for
how
having
you
me
doing?
back. I appreciate it. Good to see you both.
Same here. You're always welcome.
Yep,
Well-
you're always welcome on the show. So before I brought you on, Joe and I were talking about Mr. Terrell Bernard's historic game this week. What did you think of that performance?
I tried to watch the game with some friends, but then I ended up watching it down here in my basement, and I got my chair over here, and I think I almost broke the armrest a couple times, just kind of being excited, for the interceptions, the sacks, the fumble recovery. Man, I'm just so glad to see that they have a solidified middle linebacker now, and that shows that they made the right choice. And man, he's living up to what the trust that they put in him, and it's really exciting.
Exactly. He's what I call the modern day defensive back in a linebacker's body. He's small, but he's fast like a D back, like a safety. He can definitely pick the ball off like a safety and get after the quarterback too. So
100%.
So anyway, you guys ready to talk about the week 3 games?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to kick off with Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. Sorry, guys, that's my best Chris Berman impression there for Prime. So, but anyway, we love him. Also a member of Bills Mafia, by the way. So it looked like the game was pretty much one-sided from the start. Although I will say, though, the Giants' defense was kind of able to hold up a little bit, but then it pretty much went the game and went that the 49ers were the better team and the Giants were just outmatched. But one cool thing is Tyrod Taylor and Sam Darnold were at least able to get into the game and get them some playing time in a blowout. So game. So Joe, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I just, every Giants game, you wonder which Daniel Jones is going to show up. I mean, the game before, he had this crazy comeback, 20-point comeback. I mean, you're down 60-0 as far as your entire season and thinking, what's going on? And then, again, make a great comeback against Arizona. And, a lot of times you can base performances based on fantasy points, right? He had like 30 fantasy points in that game. Absolutely crazy. If you look at this game against the 49ers, I think he had like 5 fantasy points, and just all kinds of issues. Now, of course, we're talking about the 49ers defense instead of the Cardinals defense. But still, it just seems like he seemed a little lost, and whatever momentum he had from that game against Arizona was just completely lost. So, and just the entire offense seemed flat in that game. And again, that a lot of it probably has to do with the 49ers defense, which is certainly above average. And like you said, I thought the Giants defense played decent. They held the guys in check except for Deebo Samuel, who went crazy. He was over 100 total yards, or 150, I think. But and again, just at the end, it seemed like just everything fell apart there. But I thought the Giants defense, played decent. So, again, we've been saying all along that we think the Giants season is going to be a little bit of a backstep and a struggle. And I think this is just proof of that. But certainly all is not lost. I mean, you kind of expected that they would lose at San Francisco. Would have been nice if the score was a little closer there. But, 1-2 with your losses to Dallas and San Francisco, if you're, the Giants, it's not the end of the world just yet. And they certainly got plenty of time to recoup.
Yeah, exactly. Your thoughts, Steve? Did you watch the game on Prime? Do you have an Amazon Prime?
Yeah, so I didn't watch it because I have to reserve my staying up late for football games for the Bills, because I have to get up so early on Fridays and on Tuesdays and Monday morning. So I don't really stay up to watch those games too often, but obviously I did watch the highlights, and it's pretty funny to think with the Giants, right? So just how every week is just a crapshoot, really, when it comes to games, right? Because the Giants get blown out by Dallas 40-0. And then they come back and then they beat the Cardinals in a comeback win, and they beat them, right? And then this week, the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. So nothing makes sense in the NFL when it comes to games and why teams win the way they win. But when you looked at that Thursday night game, the expecting winner was the 49ers going into that, and they came out on top. They probably could have done things better. And I think the Giants definitely did okay on defense, but their offense really looked bad against a good defense. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the forte for the Giants, because I think that's what Daniel Jones is. I think he will be a fantasy king against bad defenses, and he will be a fantasy blunder against good defenses. And that's Daniel Jones in a nutshell. So that's where I look at it with him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I have to say, I think Joe hit it on the nail that the Giants defense, that was Dable's best hire. Wink Martindale's a very, very good defensive coordinator, and he has been for a long time. Why I like him is because he's not afraid to just pressure you in any situation. And the Giants do actually have a decent defense. It's just like the old cliche, your defense can only do so much as your offense. And the one thing I will say about Daniel Jones, the one thing I think he is getting better at, though, is playing within the system, like we talk about with Josh Allen. That's the type of quarterback Daniel Jones is. He's not. Is he going to be this like franchise saving great quarterback? But no. But with the money he's getting paid, they just ask him to play within the system. I mean, that's what he's pretty much going to be as a quarterback that does that. And but yeah, I thought San Francisco were the clear winners in the game. That was obvious. But like I said, it was good to watch our old buddy Tyrod Taylor get into the game when the game was pretty much decided. So win or lose, it's good to see him still getting playing time. So let's move on to our awesome game this week, the Bills and the Commanders on Sunday afternoon. With this being McDermott's 100th game coach, congratulations, Coach McDermott. We didn't want to not give you your props on the show for that. That's an awesome milestone. We love having you in Bills Mafia and Bills Country as our coach. We were thankful we hired you in 2017. And I also, like I said, this was Terrell Bernard's best game so far as a Bill. And as Steve mentioned, he got so excited watching Bernard making all those picks and fumble recoveries and sacks and everything. So what do you think of the Bills? I'm going to use a nice pun here. Commanding win over Washington, 35-3. Excuse me, 37-3. Sorry, 35-3 was the wild card comeback game. 37-3, I meant to say. So, Steve, your thoughts on this one?
Well, I guess what I'll do, because I've heard a lot of people, a lot of Bills fans calling into radio shows, and it's hard to be nitpicky with the Bills because they had a great game the past 2 weeks, but I'm going to be a little nitpicky because everyone's oohing and awing over the Dolphins' 70 points, right? And the Bills put up about half of that with 37. The one thing I do think Buffalo did on Sunday is they left a lot of points on the field. There was a lot of opportunities. They had Josh Allen had that turnover, which was on 3rd and 20, which is fine. It was like a punt. But on 4th and 1, they went for it. And then the spread formation, which I think they should have just done the QB sneak where Gabe Davis pushes Josh Allen for the yard. You go down there, you get 7 points instead of 3. Actually, they didn't end up with any points because it was on 4th down. So there was a lot of opportunities. I think the Bills could have dropped 70 points if they really hit their stride the way they should have offensively. So that's my nitpick. But other than that, I mean, the defense, they made Sam Howell look like a college quarterback again. And he looked flustered. He was scared to throw. He was scared to do anything. And, after your 9th sack, you got to feel the tingle coming up your back that someone's going to hit you again. And he was just afraid to do anything. So Sean McDermott, all the kudos to him for scheming up a great defensive game against them. And it's really exciting to see what this team can do with Bernard being the middle linebacker calling the plays. I think the sky's the limit for this defense. I know they have a little bit of aging on there, but we had 9 sacks on Sunday without Von Miller. So it's, I think it's a thing of beauty with what they're going to scheme up, and it's going to be an interesting week coming up. But all in all, dominating performance all around. And then one last thing I'll touch on is the run game has been really nice to see the past 2 weeks. I know I wasn't on with you guys last week, but the balance in the offense, I know they didn't really do too great on 1st and 2nd down run plays, but for Cook to be close to 100 yards, get a rushing touchdown, and the week before to have 2 guys get a touchdown and Cook go over 100 yards, it's a beautiful thing to see that Josh Allen's not carrying the full load on his back, and that's exciting to me.
Exactly, and like I mentioned before, it's playing within the system because the Jets game, he's one of those guys that some quarterbacks you can see don't have the passion at all to want to play the game. And he's very, very passionate. And I think sometimes he gets very excited and like he's jacked up on energy drinks or something that he just struggles. And I think that's what happened in the Jets game. I think he was just so full of passion and energy that he needed to dial it back the last 2 weeks, and he did. He calmed down and he played within the system. That one interception was basically an arm punt, but he's playing the quarterback position the right way. It might not be larger than life or an exciting type of football like he's done the past 2 years, but as you mentioned, when you have a running game and you have all the tools now to be more creative in your offense, it's more managing the offense while continuing to be a franchise quarterback. It doesn't have to be putting up fantasy king numbers as long as you play within the system, don't turn the ball over, and get that run game going. He could be effective in that too. And I think what's also helping is the pre-snap motion. You see a lot of more guys, wide receivers and tight ends like Dawson Knox is being moved all over in motion. Dalton Kincaid is. Diggs is being moved in the backfield in motion. And Deontay Hardy is too, like how the 49ers, like I said, the Deebo Samuel effect, are doing some of that as well. So what do you guys think of Dorsey's plan to use more pre-snap motion this year, the last 2 games, than he ever did last year?
Yeah, it's, great idea to always keep things moving, and I think that's going to have an effect. And, Steve mentioned the balance on offense, and this is something that we have not seen for this team in a very long time. Just to see, I mean, I think that we said on the show last week, they ran the ball 30 times against in game 2 there. And I didn't count it before we came on here, but I think it would be fairly close to that. I know James Cook ended up with like 98 yards, so certainly, just with that balance and just, always keeping defenses guessing here with the motion, I think it makes, big difference. Two things that stood out to me in this game, I kind of had a feeling that the Bills were going to win this game all along, and they just had that dominating performance to do so. But I got a little worried as all I kept hearing all week on national, XM radio football shows and things like that, was how great this Washington front four is. And all I can think of, we know that Josh Allen doesn't exactly make great decisions when he's rushed and when he's forced to make quick decisions. And I just kept hearing how this, fearsome four was going to make him do that. Now, but I'm sure people aren't saying that for nothing. I mean, Washington does have probably an underrated defense, but I think they had the wrong team because Josh Allen had all the time in the world to throw the ball. The offensive line blocked great for the running backs. And it was Howell. It was the Washington quarterback that was running for his life the whole time. And it was the Bills front four that was this fearsome group that just wouldn't let this quarterback do anything, and getting 9 sacks. I mean, that's crazy, so they just had it completely backwards there. One thing also that I really liked is we're starting to see some consistency. The guys that are supposed to be, putting up the numbers and doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is 2 weeks in a row now. I mean, it's only 2 weeks, but, again, Stephon Diggs, another great game. James Cook, another great game. Josh Allen, consistent, no mistake football, just doing the right things. Defense, again, besides Bernard, who just was all over the place and, MVP on defense. Pretty much the rest of it was just, again, defense by committee. It was a lot of the guys quiet. Matt Milano. It's like I didn't hear his name at all, but then I looked and it's like, what did he do? He had like 5 tackles in the game. So, it was just kind of defense by committee and just consistency. And I really like the consistency we've seen in the last couple of weeks with this team. And, besides the different, again, the motions and the balance and things like that we talked about. So definitely reasons for optimism there.
And I looked it up, Joe. The Bills, including Josh Allen's 3 carries, the Bills rushed 32 times. Yes, on Sunday. So that's definitely some balance for sure.
Definitely.
And speaking of James Cook, we actually would like to take the time to congratulate him on being officially being a girl dad, which is awesome. So he's joining the club with Steve here being a girl dad, which is awesome. So
it's the best thing in the world. So he's going to be a better player because of it.
I got 3 of them too. So that's awesome. I didn't know that.
It's awesome. I think it was his birthday too, right? Like a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was 24. His 24th birthday.
Quite a week. I think he averaged 6.5 yards a carry. I mean, he's going above what I think we expect of him. Mm-hmm. And he is shifty, isn't he? He's fun to watch. His little his juke moves are just so smooth.
It's great. Yeah, and he caught a couple of passes too, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where would you put him on a scale in terms of I know this might be a little premature, but where would you put him next to his brother, do you think?
It's definitely pretty early to tell. I think Dalvin Cook was more of a workhorse running back. James Cook seems to be taking that role. I mean, he had 15 of the carries on Sunday. But I think James Cook is more of a diverse running back than Dalvin was. Dalvin seems more of like a downhill runner with that, and James Cook might be. I think James Cook's actually faster than Dalvin was.
Yeah, he was. He ran a 4.42, James Cook, in his 40-yard dash. Dalvin ran a 4.47. So
pretty close. But he's faster, and he'll never let him live it down, I bet.
Yeah, and I don't think we can compare him yet. I don't know if he has the potential to make the same impacts, as Dalvin Cook, but keep having games like this, and perhaps, that can happen.
One of the things before we go to the next game, Jamie, I'll let you know, is as I'm looking at these stats, Brian Robinson ran the ball very well against us. He averaged 7 yards a carry, and I think because the Bills got that 16-point lead, it made them feel like they had to throw more, to kind of get back into things, and I think that was their downfall, because if they would have kept handing Brian Robinson the ball, he was definitely running well and running hard, and then Antonio Gibson right behind him. I think he averaged, he was like 8 yards a carry. So pretty impressive stuff to see, but they had no choice but to throw, and the Bills just took that away from them. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's actually interesting, though, Joe, is you said Washington's defense didn't look that great up until James Cook actually had those big runs. Mm-hmm. They actually didn't look bad, the Commanders, against the run. It was the pass they struggled against. But like I said, their run defense is actually, we found out, was actually pretty decent, and we were still able to, James Cook was still able to get 100 yards, even though that front four is a good run defense. So I wanted to point that out. Anyway, let's take a look at the Sunday night game, the Pittsburgh-Las Vegas game. And we, of course, as always, we've always been waiting all day for Sunday night, right? Love that theme song. The game was at Allegiant Stadium. So with everybody's favorite punching bag and the Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers, Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, I think this was actually a better game that he called this week than he did the first two games. And yet Pittsburgh still only won 23-18 in the end, despite being up 23-7. So, Joe, your thoughts on this game?
All right. Now, I didn't get to watch it. Usually the Sunday night games I'll catch up until halftime and then, look at the highlights later. But again, I wasn't feeling well, so I went to bed very early that night. But, got to read about it, and it just seems like the game was not really as close as the score indicates. Pittsburgh with a nice, steady, dominant performance. And, again, it's nice to see the development of Kenny Pickett. And I always had high hopes for him, and I always thought he would do well. And you could just see that steady, continuous progress there, So, based on what I saw, it looked like the game it wasn't as close as the score would indicate. But, Pittsburgh, again, they're 2-1. And a lot of people were picking them to be close to the top of the division. So, looks like, again, slow and steady winning that race, and they're right in the thick of it there.
Nice reference to the tortoise and the hare there, Joe. Love it. Steve, your thoughts? What do you think?
That was a game, again, the late games, unless they're Bills, are hard for me to watch. And also this one, I didn't feel super interested in even trying to watch it. It was just one of those games that was kind of like, I could very easily look at the stats tomorrow. I didn't even have any fantasy investment in either team. So it was one of those games that I looked at the next day, and I was like, thank goodness I wasn't playing against Devontae Adams, because that guy seems to always just get his stats no matter the score. And he ended up with, I'm looking here, 13 catches, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is insane. And you would look at that stat line and be like, man, they must have crushed him. But that was like their only offensive production was pretty much to him. Right. He also got hit again. I know Taylor Rapp hit him pretty hard last week, and he got hit again over the middle, I think, from the linebacker from the Steelers. And, there's been a lot of big-name players going down with injuries already, and you really hate to see it for the game's sake. Losing Rodgers, Nick Chubb, and losing other players for major injuries is really bad for the game of football. It's tough to see. So you don't want to see him go down too, because then the Raiders, in my opinion, are almost unwatchable, because he definitely kind of keeps a little bit of a spark going with their team. The Steelers are one of those, I hate to call them roaches, but they just kind of stick around and they don't die. They just they're always just putting up a little bit extra fight to stay alive. And, there was a little bit of high hopes on them, especially after they beat the Bills in the preseason. And they come in here, and the Bengals aren't looking what they should look like, and the Ravens lose to the Colts, and they're like, okay, so the Steelers at the end of the season, this could be a three-way match for first place, and the Bengals might be fighting for a draft pick. You never know. I mean, it's the AFC North is I would say probably one of the biggest wild cards right now. Who's going to win that division? And it could be the Steelers. You know, they always have a good defense, and Pickett could improve. You never know what the Ravens are going to do, and injuries could happen to anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how the AFC North plays out. But that game really didn't. I was not excited to watch it, and I apologize if any Raiders or Steelers fans are watching, but there was just not much interest in that game for me, especially. But it was a good, close game. I guess came up to the end. I think it was one score, so it, at least they put on a little bit of a show for the Sunday night crowd.
Yeah, no, they definitely put on the show for our producer, Adam. By the way, who's he's a big Steelers guy. He's from Pittsburgh, and he's a Maulers fan too. So congratulations, Adam, if you're listening, or if you're on the Charming Ravens podcast or Charming Heavyweights podcast. The Steelers look great after the first game against the 49ers. So that's always a good thing. And even their defense, I think, is really impressive with the Steelers. That's what's helped them the last two games. And even the game against the 49ers where they lost 30-7, TJ Watt still had 3 sacks on Brock Purdy. And I was like, okay, the Steelers defense still looks like it's going to be a good unit. They just had a daunting task against San Francisco, and lo and behold, they play 2 solid games against Cleveland, which is a good offense. And the Raiders, they look good defensively as well. But yeah, 23-18, not as close as the score indicated. So lastly, tackling Monday night's game, the Eagles are now 3-0 and beat the Bucs 25-11. But again, this is another game where even though the score was a 14-point loss to the Bucs defense held their own against the Eagles for a little bit, and then they just did what they did the last 2 games in typical Eagles fashion this year, run the ball at will and impose their will on the defense and tiring them out instead of using Jalen Hurts' leg as much. But hey, if you have to run the ball, you got to run the ball to win games too. You still have to be able to do that even with today's air raid, spread it out attack, speed offenses. So, Joe, do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. It's talk about taking the pressure off Jalen Hurts. I mean, this is the second game in a row where Swift just ran crazy. He either had like 130, 150 yards rushing last night, I thought I saw.
130.
130, okay. But that's the second game in a row. And I mean, if he's going to keep, rushing like this, that's going to take a lot of pressure off Hurts as far as him being relied upon to run the ball. But I could just see the writing on the wall 5 minutes into this game. Every once in a while, Baker Mayfield just has one of those weak games. He played a couple of great games the first 2 of the season, and I could just see this was not going to be one of those. Philadelphia's defense just showed up and dominated from the start. They were very impressive, and, it looked immediately like Baker Mayfield had no answers. And it was just like, I see, I played one of those single fantasy games on DraftKings, and I loaded up on some Tampa players to be contrarian, and I saw, like I said, after about 5 minutes that it wasn't going to work, and that Philadelphia had this game under control, and they pretty much controlled it. I didn't see it to the end, but looks like they just controlled everything from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree with that. So do you think they're the team to beat in the NFC East now?
They're one of them. In the NFC East, I still think Dallas is the team to beat, even though they laid an egg this week, but knocked a few family members out of our survivor pool. But I still think Dallas is the team to beat there. But I don't know. Philadelphia's showing that they're not going away. Talk about that roach that just won't leave. They were in the Super Bowl, last and plan on going back based on the way they're playing.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So I agree with that assessment, and that the Eagles just have a formula now. And I'm really upset with the fact that I dumped DeAndre Swift, on my fantasy team, because I had him in week 1, didn't look that great, and then in week 2 he just ran amok on the Vikings, and it looks like he ran amok this week. So yeah, I'll remember not to dump him again after just one
Not
week,
too
because it
fast.
was only a matter of time that he was going to have another good game. So Steve, what were your thoughts on this game? Another late game.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say in my fantasy league, I had Mr. One Devon A-Chain on my bench, so that happened yesterday. But I think most of the world had him on their bench, or he was a free agent in most leagues. So this game, I think the score was, they said today on the radio that 25-11 is the first time that score has ever happened in history,
Wow.
which is kind of interesting. I know 11's
Wow.
a weird number to get in a game, but yeah, 25-11's never happened before. And DeAndre Swift is, I think, a great addition to them. I think they already had a decent offensive line. Miles Sanders produced well last year, but DeAndre Swift is a way better running back, in my opinion. And getting him back there with the weapons that they already have as receivers, tight end, quarterback, DeAndre Swift is just another piece to their puzzle. And I think they will be a force in the playoffs. Their defense, I think, is underperforming, in my opinion, right now. From what the expectations were at the beginning of the season, with the draft capital they had and building into that defense. And I think they have a lot of room for improvement, which is actually scary, because if they do continue to improve, they'll be putting up a fight in the NFC Championship with either Dallas or the 49ers. And then be a force in the Super Bowl if they get there again. So I think Tampa Bay we were just waiting for their true colors to be shown this year. Baker Mayfield is one of those guys that I feel like he's like an energy drink. Like, I know you mentioned it earlier, gives you a really good high in the beginning and then crash and burn in the afternoon. And I think Baker Mayfield he's a good hype man. I think his teammates love him because he's got a passion for the game, but he always seems to lay an egg. And there's a reason he's on his third team starting the season. So it's he's got good weapons there. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are great, in my opinion. The Bucs defense, I think, is what's going to keep them in the NFC South, which is not a great division right now. But I think that I don't think they're going to go far this season with Baker Mayfield behind center. So it was really no shock to wake up to find the Eagles winning that game. It was more of just how bad did they get beat, or how close did the Bucs keep it? And I think the Bucs actually kept it closer than I thought it was going to be. So that's my thoughts on that game. And I think the Eagles are going to probably keep this train rolling for a while here till they face the Bills.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. The Bills would make us want to shout, obviously.
100%.
This is part of this show here in the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. So it's now time for, once again, guys, on our show to move on to, yes, it is the question of the week segment. So, Steve, since you're a returning guest this week and you haven't answered a question in a long time on our show, you get to be the lucky guest to answer the question again. So here's your question. Who do you think this Hall of Fame defensive back is? He played on 4 teams, had 71 INTs and 12 INTs for touchdowns, and was in Super Bowl 35. Is it Ed Reed, Deion Sanders, Eric Allen, Rod Woodson?
Give me a second here. What are we on this year? Super Bowls 57?
58.
Yeah,
58
coming up. That was in 2001, because I'm as old as the Super Bowl. So it's my age every year. So I could tell you when they were. So that was Super Bowl 35 was 2001, which was
that
Baltimore.
Patriots? No, it was Baltimore versus
Baltimore and the Giants.
Yeah,
Baltimore and the Giants or San Fran?
Giants.
Baltimore
No,
and
the
the Giants.
Giants.
Baltimore and the Giants. I was pretty new to the NFL at that stage. Let me think here. I'm going to go with Ed Reed. I just didn't think he played for 4 teams, but I know he was a ball hawk. So I'm going to go with Ed Reed.
Actually, the correct answer was Rod Woodson.
Okay.
Hmm.
Fair enough. I didn't know. I thought. Do you know what teams he played for? I know he played for the Steelers. Who else did he play for? Did he play for the Ravens?
Yeah, he did there.
And
Yeah.
Raiders, maybe?
That was
Raiders.
Charles Woodson.
Yeah,
played
I
for the
know it was
Raiders. Did
Oakland,
Rod too?
Pittsburgh, Baltimore were the 3. So,
Okay.
okay, so now let's take a look at the top 10 power rankings in the NFL, starting with some of the best teams and who rose and who fell in the standings. So it looks like the 49ers held on to the number 1 spot, numero uno, from last week. So, Joe, do you agree that the San Francisco 49ers are number 1 right now? What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't have them number 1, but I could certainly see why they're up there. I would have Miami there just based on what they've done offensively all year, but you certainly can't argue what San Francisco's done. I mean, beating Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh handily, beating the Giants. I mean, the Giants are no, pushover. And now I'm blanking on who they beat in the other game. Was it the Rams?
Rams, yes.
Yeah. So that's not saying much, but I have no complaints with them being at number 1. I mean, I certainly could, I think, easily make a case for that. I would maybe have the Dolphins slightly over them at this point.
Okay, that's good to know, Joe. So, Steve, your thoughts?
I think I got to agree with Joe on there. I think the Dolphins' offense is a train. I think that their offense makes up for their lack in defense right now. I do feel that if the 49ers are probably more balanced on offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, the Dolphins look really hard to stop right now. I know that I don't know which power rankings you're looking at, Jamie. I know that Dan Hansis today put his out, the NFL, and he put the Dolphins 1. But it's interchangeable, I think, 1 and 2 with Dolphins and 49ers. So that's where I look at it. The 49ers could very easily be there. And I do think that this coming week we're going to get a real glimpse as to what the Dolphins are. I mean, if they steamroll the Bills, then they're clearly number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Bills win, which I think they can, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week in the power rankings. But right now, I'd put the Dolphins up there. They're just, I mean, they made a Denver team look like a high school team. So,
yeah, I could see both points of view. Miami did put up 70 points this past week against that Denver team, and they did put up 36 against the Chargers, but they only scored 24 against New England's defense. And the 49ers look consistent on both sides of the ball. So I'm going to actually have to say I got the 49ers 1 and the Dolphins 2 in my perspective. And I got my power rankings from Yahoo Sports.
okay.
Or no, at Fox Sports, not Yahoo Sports, Steve. I got it from Fox Sports.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, I looked at the ESPN list before we came on, and they also had San Francisco as number 1. So,
Okay.
like you said, it's interchangeable. I mean, both teams have excellent arguments to be there.
Sure.
Yes, they do. So moving on 1 spot from 3 to number 2 is the team we just talked about, the Miami Dolphins. What's up with those 70 points scored? What about that, Steve?
They're scary. I mean, they did that without Jalen Waddle too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's a little concerning, I think, for opposing teams. Really, any opposing team right now, trying to figure out how to stop Tua and that offense and the double-headed monster at running back now they have with Mostert and A-Chain.
Mm-hmm.
They look like a tough team to stop. But again, as I mentioned earlier, Sam Howell put up 35 points and a half against that Denver defense. So I will not die on the hill that the Dolphins are a force until they beat a really good defense, and I think they're doing that. They're going to play that this weekend. So I'm a little nervous about the game, but I'm also excited to see what Sean McDermott schemes up, and they always play tough against their division opponents. So, Dolphins are good, and I think they're well placed right now at 2 or 1 in either rankings we looked at. So,
And Joe?
I mean, I'm a little fearful that I'm not nervous enough about this game. I am very confident the Bills win this game. Just again, based on what was just said, as far as Miami, I mean, scoring 70 points in the NFL is very impressive, no matter who it's against. But I don't think. How many times has a team scored 70 points this week, no matter how good their offense is, and come out flat the next week? Now, they're not going to come out flat because this is a divisional game and probably the game of the season so far. So they're certainly not going to come out flat. But so many times you see a team score a ton of points one week and score almost nothing the next week. And that setup is there. If the Bills defense plays like it has been playing, that potential is there to see Miami not score many points at all. It goes the other way too. How many times does a team like they'll seem like they'll never score another point again in one game and then explode the next game? That's how the NFL has been forever. Yep. But, the Dolphins, they keep playing like they have been, and everybody stays healthy, especially the quarterback. I mean, they're an automatic Super Bowl contender, I think. So, but this game, I really firmly believe the Bills win this game, a close one and a lower scoring game than a lot of people are thinking. But, I think Miami's 3-1 after this week.
When you said game of the week, it just made me think that, like, how is this game? And I'm totally fine with 1:00 games on Sunday, but how is this game at 1:00 and Monday night is Denver versus Chicago? Like, how does the NFL screw that one up, man? That's pretty bad. So I don't know. They like putting Russ in primetime for some reason, but my goodness.
Right. Yeah, that baffles me a little bit too.
Yeah.
Talk about a real Legion of Boom.
No kidding. Nailed it.
Putting Russell Legion of Boom, Seattle Seahawks defense when Dan Quinn was there and Russell Wilson was there when they beat Peyton Manning's Broncos in the Super Bowl. So ball went over him in Peyton Manning's head the first play of that game. I remember that like it's yesterday for safety. So anyway, moving on back to 2023 and power rankings, with a record of 2-1 and not being in the top 10 last week, the Cleveland Browns are. I got ahead of myself, folks. Never mind. With a record of 2-1 and moving up from number 5 to number 3 is the always solid and again another rodent, but a consistent rodent in the league, especially on our side. We can attest to that. The solid Kansas City Chiefs with Mahomes having Kelsey to throw to as always, or should we say Travis Maotto too as his alter ego, like those commercials, not just Travis Kelsey, but aka also Mr. Two Things at Once. And often are you really surprised that they've moved up in the standings? Joe, what do you think?
I'm not surprised that the Chiefs moved up in the standings. I mean, they're the defending champions and a Super Bowl favorite again. I wouldn't have him as 3 just yet. There's another 3-0 team out there that we just talked about, the Philadelphia Eagles, that I would still have in the 3 spot at this point. But when I calculated my own ratings here, I had Kansas City at 4, so certainly top tier team. And again, you're the defending champs and certainly have the capability to go back there again. And again, Bills had a dominating performance. The Dolphins had a dominating performance. Nobody's talking about the Chiefs. Again, the Bears are certainly off to a very slow start, but I mean, the Chiefs just manhandled them in every aspect of the game. So I can understand them putting them 3. If it's me, I think they're at 4 just because Philadelphia is 3-0 still.
Exactly. Steve, your thoughts with the Chiefs being ranked third?
I think there's always a couple teams that get the previous year's love in the power rankings, and I think the Chiefs are that. I think that they're, because they won the Super Bowl last year, they're getting the benefit of the doubt that week 1 is a liar, and that they're still a great team, which they are. They're always going to be great as long as Mahomes is behind center for them. But I agree with Joe on this one. I think the Eagles are deserving of the number 3 spot just because they're 3-0. And the Chiefs, I mean, they've beaten who? They beat the Bears. They lost to the Lions. And who did they beat last week? I can't even remember who they played.
Jacksonville.
And Jacksonville doesn't look like as much of a force as I thought. So, and it was a low-scoring game. The Texans put up way more points on the Jacksonville Jaguars than the Chiefs did. So I think that the Chiefs might be a little bit of a kind of teetering on being outside of the top 5, depending on how next week goes. But again, they're getting last year's love, and I think that's something that will happen to the Chiefs and the Eagles for at least the first half of this season, in my opinion, in the power rankings especially.
But as Travis Kelce always says, though, it doesn't matter about power rankings, and I'm going to take his quote here from the Bengals AFC Championship game. You just got to shut your mouth and do your job.
That's it. Now, where do you see the Chiefs at this point, Jamie?
I kind of see the Chiefs from both your point of view. They're kind of getting last year and the year before that and the year before that love, because I think, you could say Travis Kelce was obviously out against the Lions, but give the Lions credit because they had a great plan, and that was just to run the ball and keep Mahomes on the sideline, which a lot of teams basically neglect to do. But I do think I'm going to steal I'm not going to steal her, but I'm going to use the title as Aaron Andrews and Carissa Thompson say on their podcast, which is called Calm Down. I think the NFL, I think Fox Sports needs to calm down with this ranking. But then I also forgot they work for Fox Sports, so that I put two But hey, like Travis Kelce said, 2 things at once. I put 2 things at once there.
Right.
So
you need to calm down. You got the Taylor Swift reference in there too.
Right. You're being too loud.
That's
anyway.
Yeah. With the girl dad, I know all this Taylor Swift stuff,
Yeah, and it's pretty funny. You actually just brought up Taylor Swift after talking about the Chiefs, so that was a nice move there, Joe.
Yep,
that was very done, very impressive. Anyway, let's move on to Travis's brother Jason's team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I still think that's an awesome story. As Travis Kelce's mom to have 2 boys in the Super Bowl last year, and the sacrifice that she makes for those 2 men, and they're both awesome men, very funny too. Anyway, with the Eagles, they remain the same at number 4 this week. Steve, do you think they're going to win the NFC East?
I definitely think it's going to be a toss-up between them and Dallas. I think it's going to be whoever wins. I think one of them needs to steal a game from a team that's better than them, which is not many teams, but I think one of them needs to steal. One of them needs to beat the other one twice in the 2 division matchups they have. And that, I think that will determine the winner of the NFC East. And I don't know which team that's going to be. I think the Eagles, again, having last year's love, are getting the higher ranking than the Cowboys right now, but the Cowboys also did just lose to the Cardinals. So I think the NFC East is there for the taking for either of those 2 teams. I think the Giants and Commanders will be at the bottom looking up at both of them, probably for the whole season. And that's I think the Eagles are ranked fairly right now. Again, with my previous comment, I think they should be a little higher above the Chiefs because they're 3-0. But having them in the NFL Dan Hans's power rankings has them at 4 as well. So it's a pretty common trend across the board. But the Chiefs are going to get their little bias from everyone probably for this whole year, no matter what they do, it seems like. So,
Yeah, Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I'd have the Eagles at 3 at this point. I still think, and I've been saying all along, and it's my prediction that Dallas wins that division. But still, the Eagles are proving, as I mentioned, that they're a Super Bowl contender still. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division, if Dallas falters. I think this was just a fluke for Dallas this week. Every good team seems to have that one game early where, they just fall flat. But and they are going to be battling neck and neck all year. I still think Dallas takes the division. I think Dallas actually has a better chance to get to the Super Bowl. But certainly the Eagles are making their case to go back right now.
Yeah, like I said, I do like the Eagles tweak their offense a bit this year with them running the ball more, like I said, because they got DeAndre Swift, who's a very, very shifty, or should we say a Swifty running back. He's another Swifty that's in the NFL, not just Taylor Swift. So yeah, that's another two things at once. You could be a fan of both Swifties, DeAndre and Taylor.
And you get a Kelsey with both teams too. So
and
Kelsey and Swift on 2 teams.
Yep, 2 things at once.
And my daughter
4 things at once, actually. 4 things at once.
My daughter just yelled at me. She says, "You didn't really make a Taylor Swift reference on this football show, did you?" And so I guess I can't talk about that anymore.
I think we've heard enough of Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Except we don't have any teardrops on our guitar.
No.
And by the way, this is our song this week. 2 references there. Anyway.
Hopefully we still got some viewers left here after all this.
I think we do.
All right, awesome.
So let's move on to our Buffalo Bills. And I say our like we're Terry Pagula. We own the team. But with looking like the winners over the past 2 weeks, they were the biggest mover-uppers this week. 3 spots from number 8 to number 5 this week. Yay. Congratulations to the Bills. They officially entered the top 5 of the power rankings. What do you think about that, Joe? And you already know what I think. I want to know what you know. Deion Dawkins reference. Go ahead.
Yeah, I could see the Bills at 5. I think as I go through my information here, that's where I had them. 2-1 at this point. Again, we thought they'd be 3-0, but 2-1. You can't complain about that, and again, this team is definitely trending in the right direction. They have right now a Super Bowl caliber defense here. And if they continue to play like that, then, it can carry this team if the offense falters. But the offense isn't faltering. We talked about that consistency before. And, the superstars and the guys that are supposed to be stepping up, at least in the last couple of games, have been stepping up. So, this team had high expectations going into the season, and now I think you're starting to see, those expectations and what was expected of them, manifest. And I think if they can win this game, as I really think they will, that's certainly going to show that they're in the upper echelon and of Super Bowl contenders here, not only, in the AFC, but the entire league. So big game coming up, and really the Bills can prove themselves with a win against the Dolphins here, which again I think will happen.
And as Journey always says, and what Bills fans always say, don't stop believing.
Right.
Joe, Steve, do you believe that we're ranked number 5?
I think it's fair, based on our discussions. Obviously, I always like to see the Bills as high as possible in the rankings, but to me, it's just wins. That's really what matters. Stats don't matter as much. Just get the wins. I don't care how you do it. And I do think that next week's rankings are either going to I think they're going to do one of 2 things. I think they're going to stay pretty close to the same that they are this week, or the Bills are going to shoot up in the rankings even higher. I don't think the Bills are going to drop much because I think even if they lose to Miami, which obviously we hope they don't, I think they're going to put up a fantastic fight against Miami and, show them what Sean McDermott really has built with this defense. With it being a low-scoring, close game, obviously it's going to be there for the taking for either team, I think, in the end of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Bills can do to finish them off and, maybe knock them down in the power rankings and take their spot. So 3-1 sounds a lot better than 2-2, and it's going to be exciting to see what the Bills do on Sunday. But 5, I think, is fair right now.
And you already know that I agree with the number 5 rankings. Again, I pulled another Deion Dawkins, but sorry, I just love when he says that. It's funny, especially the NBC games. Instead of saying he's from Temple, he says he's from You Already Know University. Dang it, I did it again. Anyway, yeah, I think the Bills are right there at number 5. But like I said, we're 2-1, and even as bad as the Bills played against the Jets, they still took them to overtime, and it was a kick return that lost them the game. And Allen didn't play very well, and we don't usually give up a bunch of kick returns like that in overtime.
And 4 turnovers, and you still lose by 6 with 4 turnovers. That's pretty telling to what the Bills probably will do to the Jets next time, in my opinion.
Yeah,
exactly. This would make Evan very happy this week, Joe. I think it would make him if he heard this. With a record of 2-1 and not being in the top 10 last week, the Cleveland Browns, yes, you heard that, the Browns are in the number 6 spot. It's probably since the 1960s or 1950s that we heard the Browns were number 6 in the power rankings.
right.
Do you think they've earned it, Steve?
Nope. I think they're a little too high. I actually agree with where they are in the NFL ones that I'm looking at. They're 9. I think 6 is too high for them right now. I think that Deshaun Watson is still a wild card. He had a decent game on Sunday. Who did they play? Trying to remember.
Tennessee.
Right. And Tennessee's not that impressive. So, for Yahoo Sports to put them up at 6, I think that's just kind of giving them a little bit of a little too much praise for beating a pretty bad Tennessee team.
It was Fox Sports, Steve.
Fox Sports, that's right. Yeah, but I think they're maybe at 9, maybe even out of the top 10. I don't think they're there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can accept that answer. I can agree with that answer. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, in my rankings, I had the Browns at like 10. Still a step up, and in the beginning of the season, we certainly didn't expect to see the Browns as a top 10 team, even though it's only after 3 weeks. A lot of optimism there. I would not have them this high. I had them in my own rankings at like 10. But I think a lot of it is, they have one of the higher point differentials, I think, in the league, which is probably why they're ranked as high as they are. But still, no offense to them, a lot of optimism with Cleveland, and I don't think they would have expected to be top 10, top 6 at all at this point, after 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, as far as my view on this, like that, Deshaun Watson did have his best game as a Brown this Sunday, but I think they're inconsistent, and especially Jerome Ford, he did have a touchdown this week, which helped me in fantasy because I'm starting him now with Nick Chubb being out. And but yeah, I still think the Browns might be a little bit over the top or overrated there. I would think they would be 8 or 9 or maybe 10. But hey, it's good to see them have somebody give them their flowers at least for a week, which is good. So anyway, with the biggest drop of the week, and to my mother's biggest disappointment, the Cowboys dropped to number 7 after being number 2 last week. What do you think of that, Joe?
I have them at 5. Wait, we had the Bills at 4, we had the Bills at 5. I'm trying to remember here.
Yeah, Bills were
all right.
Bills. I said 5.
I would have Dallas at 6. Just below the Bills. I mean, you deserve to get dropped when you get crushed by the Arizona Cardinals, who are supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. and they just didn't. Dallas didn't show up for that game. Again, I think it's a fluke. I think it's going to be one of only maybe 4 losses all year. So I think Dallas is the team to beat in the NFC East. They could be the team to beat in the NFC still, as long as people stay healthy and things go well. I mean, losing Diggs hurts. I'm wondering if that maybe pushed them down in the rankings a little bit, because that's a shot to their defense. But Dallas is going to be right back there, and I would have them just below the Bills. Certainly not below Cleveland, But if any Cowboys fans watching, don't fear. I mean, they're going to be right there in the end.
Just like Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Cowboys. Anyway, Steve, what do you think's going on in Big D after this week?
I think that the Cowboys had their week 1 game that we had. If the Bills would have lost to the Jets on Monday, the way they did on Sunday, the way they did on Monday night in week 1, we'd be talking about like, oh, well, that's a little, odd for them to see, Josh Allen to play that way. But I think like Joe said earlier in the broadcast, that every team has their game here and there that they just it doesn't make sense. And Dallas had that. I mean, the Cardinals aren't even in the top 20, and the Cowboys blew out the Giants. The Giants beat the Cardinals, then the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And I think the Cowboys always have one of those games each year. Bills do too. I think the Jets or the Kansas City does as well. I think Kansas City already had theirs against the Lions. Dallas had theirs against the Cardinals. I don't think that's going to happen again with them. There's always the renowned trap game. And I think that was a very good example of it for Dallas, is they might have overlooked the Cardinals a little bit. And the Cardinals really have nothing to lose. They're playing for each other. They don't really have, they're not expecting much this season. And they just went out there and played their hearts out, and Cowboys overlooked them. And I think they deserve to drop in the rankings this week because of that. But I think they're going to shoot right back up after the next couple weeks, because they are a very talented team all around.
I agree with that. I think this is one of those just take your medicine games and relax, dial it back. Everybody has a game like this, and I have to learn how to do that too, just like I have to learn handling 2 things at once and multitasking. But yeah, so I think the Cowboys are going to definitely bounce back after this game. And NFL, we could come up with a new name for it, the Nonsense Football League,
Right.
instead of the National Football League or the No Sense Football League. We're just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It
Kidding, guys.
Never has made any sense.
Never made
That's what
it.
makes
That's
it
kind of
exciting.
long, but
That's
So we love it.
I like it. Anyway, let's move on. With the Lions showing signs of a winning team this year, they jumped up 1 spot, going from number 9 to number 8. Do you think they're showing signs of legitimacy this season? Steve, you go first.
I think so. I've always had a special interest in the Lions, and just I feel for their fan base. I think they have a loyal fan base, and I want to see them make some success in the NFC North and maybe get into the playoffs. I think that'd be great. I don't think they're there yet to consider them, anywhere in the contender race. I don't think they're at that level yet, but I do think they're trending in the right direction. And they got a young coach who's fired up and motivated, and they're building a good defense. Aiden Hutchinson is a force on defense. They have some decent offensive weapons. So I think they're going to be a team that's going to be around for a while. I think Goff is about the same age as Mahomes. I think about 28 or 29. I think he's turning next week or in a couple weeks. But I think the Lions are doing it right. They're building a team there. They're kind of doing it how the Bills did. I think they're maybe a year or 2 behind where the Bills are, maybe even 3 years behind the Bills. But they're building the team with draft picks, with some free agent signings here, and they're just trying to get to that point where they're going to take. I think they're going to take over the NFC North. If not this year, who's in the North? We got Green Bay, Vikings, Bears. Yeah, I think the Lions very well could take that division. Green Bay's surprising a couple people here and there, but I think the Lions could actually win that division this year, and I think they're placed deservingly in the top 10 this year.
Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would probably put the Lions right in that area. Yeah, and I was down on them in the beginning, and I said they wouldn't make the playoffs. But a good test of character for a team is how they respond after losing a game that they should have won. They lost that game against Atlanta. They still, I think, maybe had the hangover after the Kansas City win, and really had a winnable game there at home against Atlanta and lost it. Or not Atlanta. I think it was Seattle that went in there and beat them. But they responded very well. This was the Atlanta game, I think, but they responded well after that loss. And good teams respond well after that loss. Again, I said in the beginning, the Lions were not going to make the playoffs, but that division's a lot weaker than I thought in the beginning too. I had Minnesota winning it, and we all see the direction they're going. I thought Chicago would be very competitive, and they're not even close. Green Bay is playing probably better than we expected. So I think that opportunity is there for the Lions, and I would love to see it happen. I say this all the time. I have nothing against the Lions. I like seeing different teams like that, get to playoff success. The fans certainly deserve it, especially those that have stuck by them all these losing seasons. So I think that window is opening for them. The division is wide open now, and it's really theirs for the taking. So they keep playing consistent football like this, and 2-1 at this point is where you figured they'd be. You figured they'd lose to the Chiefs and probably win these two games here, and that's exactly where they are. So I think they might be seeing that opportunity that they have. And again, the Vikings and the Bears are not what we expected. So that division could very well be theirs for the taking. Especially if they continue to play solid football.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And just like the Bills are developing a rookie tight end in Dalton Kincaid, I think the Lions already have something with Sam Laporta. I mean, that kid's special at tight end. I think the Lions, they were worried if they were going to replace TJ Hawkinson. I think they found that with Laporta. So
they have replaced him, yes.
Could be another George Kittle or Noah Fant, another great tight end to come out of Iowa, and he's showing it already. Because Iowa's a tight end factory.
Yeah, sure is.
So, while also not being in the top 10 last week, we just mentioned, the Green Bay Packers, and this past Sunday, we returned to a Sunday kind of love with Jordan Love finally getting his chance to show off his talents as he did in week 1 against Green Bay. But I think he really showed his potential this week, taking the number 9 spot. Do you think they deserve it, Joe?
I wouldn't have them that high. There was a couple of teams I think I had in front of them, Pittsburgh being one of them. But again, I think they've surprised a lot of people. And Jordan Love, I mean, what's in the water in Green Bay that it seems like developing these quarterbacks is automatic, and they do it the same way. Aaron Rodgers waited in the wings a few years, and his career took off when he got the opportunity. And the same thing might be happening here with Jordan Love. This team is above average, and they were kind of teetering. People didn't know what direction they were going to go. And again, we just talked about the Lions having that window open to possibly steal the division. I think that same opportunity is there for the Packers if they can continue to play, the way they are. Again, a couple other teams maybe I'd have in front of them. I don't know if I'd call the Packers top 10 just yet, but they're certainly close and can certainly stay there and move up if they continue to succeed.
Yeah, I do think the Packers have a lot of potential now. They went from the older veteran in Aaron Rodgers, and even though we're not Jets fans, we do wish for a speedy recovery for him on this channel. So praying that he just heals, because a torn Achilles, that's like the granddaddy injury of all injuries there.
Right.
You tear your Achilles, especially at his age. That's not good. No bueno.
No.
Yeah. But anyway, Jordan Love has definitely shown that they're doing great. And yes, Love has everything to do with it. What's Love got to do with the reference, and what is Love, by the way? And I think you're getting that answer in Green Bay. Your quarterback is Love with Jordan Love. And last but certainly not least, the number 10 spot goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. How awesome. That is awesome for that. As we mentioned, after being 0-1 and after San Francisco, they back it up with two solid wins and two great defensive performances. And it looks like they finally got a running game going this week with Jaylen Warren, as that was kind of the problem with San Francisco. San Francisco made them one-dimensional, and basically Kenny Pickett had to throw the entire game. Then they kind of got it going in the second half against Cleveland, but this week I think was their best all-around offensive performance and the running back performance. So, Steve, what do you think of the Steelers being ranked 10 this week?
I think, same for the Packers. I think there could be like 5 teams that are ranked 10 right now. I think that could be the Ravens. I think that could be the Steelers. I think it could be the Packers, the Seahawks, and even the Saints. I don't think the Saints are that bad, but I know the Packers just beat them, so I would put the Packers ahead of them. But the Steelers being in there, I think, they do have a really good defense there, and if their offense does kind of maybe become a game-managing offense, or, they can control the ball, I think they can win some games. But it's after 3 weeks, it's hard to say. I think after 4 or even 5 weeks in the NFL, you'll get a much better taste onto where these teams actually belong in the power rankings. It's just there's always some early surprises in the top 10, and I think the top 4 teams right now are all surprises right now in the top 10. So it'll be interesting to see how it shapes out in the next couple weeks. But I think the Steelers are just as deserving as the other 2-1 teams that are in there right now.
They definitely are. And I think I'm very impressed with rookie running back Jaylen Warren. That kid's going to be a very special talent. And he's already contributing in the running game positively. And the kid can pass block, and he's only 5'8" too, but he's super fast, can pass block, catch it out of the backfield, running up the middle. He's more of a jack of all trades running back than I thought in the preseason, because he looked really good in the preseason, and it's translating already to 3 games as a rook. So congratulations to Mr. Warren for that. Well, folks, it looks like we're coming to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you in this crazy world of social media in 2023?
In the Twitter world here, X world, whatever you want to call it, Joe Dell Sports. Find me there. I'm looking, follow me for not only football, but all other sports as well.
Steve?
Yep, and in my handle, you can see there, it's on Twitter and Instagram, Bill's Car Guy. And also just a quick update, on Friday this week, I'm going to be on Channel 4 on WIVB. They're coming to my house to interview me in my basement. It's a Bill's Basement Man Cave kind of feature they're having on Wake Up with Buffalo. So Friday morning between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. I'll be on the show. So
congratulations, Steve. That's awesome. We're very proud of you
awesome.
here. So.
I'm not up at that time, but I'll certainly record it and check it out.
I had to go into work late because of that, because I usually start at 5 a.m. So I told them, I'm like, I'm going to be on TV. You have to send me in late. And they're like, okay, that's fine.
I'll look for it on
awesome.
on the Buffalo Channel 4 YouTube page.
Yeah, do it.
Afterwards, if they put it on there. So anyway, you can follow yours truly, Jamie Malloy, on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. And also on DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write football stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And I'm also on FanBuzz.com writing about G5 football. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And remember, your offense can score 70 points in a game. Your defense can hold the Eagles and the 49ers for only so long. But one thing's consistent. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We'll see you next time, folks.
See you
All right,
guys.
good night.
Bye.
To rock this time.